What's going on, everybody? This is Davon Marquise West, aka Mark West from StudyWithMark.com. And today we are going over the American government CLEP exam. Really excited for 2025 and getting all this material covered. Just to let you know, everything that I cover in this video is going to be very valuable information that I guarantee you is 100% going to be on your exam. As a matter of fact, I'm reading everything off of the College Board website here. I'm reading the topics, and then from the topics, I'm going to give you the intricate details of those topics that you need in order to be successful on this exam. So that's how this video is going to go. I'm going to read the main topics from the College Board website. Then I'm going to dive into it with this very, very extensive, intuitive study guide that I've created. Also, if you would like a study guide like this, stick around and I will tell you how you can get it. Otherwise, let's just go ahead and let's begin. All right. So, first thing we're going to talk about is institutions policy process. This is a huge chunk of your exam, 30 to 35% to be exact. Now, this is going to include the presidency, bureaucracy, Congress, and the federal courts. So, we're going to start with the presidency. All right. Everything I'm telling you, I can't stress this enough. Everything I'm telling you is going to be on your exam. So, take notes, grab a pen, open up a doc page, take some notes. Or if you're really smart, you can just take this transcript of this video and, do that. But anyway, all right, let's talk about the powers of the presidency. So I'm just going to I'm going to read through here. I'm not going to read every single thing for sake of time, but some of the powers of the president that you're going to want to know. So for one, you need to know the executive powers of the president. You need to know all of the legislative powers that the president holds, the foreign policy powers the presidents hold, and judicial powers. Okay, you also need to know the limitations on those powers. So checks and balances, right? There's certain things that the president can do, there's certain things that they can't do, and there are certain intersections of power where other branches come into play as well. And you need to know how that intertwines together. You need to know what impeach. You need to know what impeachment is. You need to know about judicial review. Some of the roles of the president. So the president is the chief executive. The president is the commander in chief. He's the chief diplomat. He's the legislative leader. He's head of state. He's an economic leader, and he's also the party leader. All right. Some of the influences of the president. All right. So you need to understand presidential influence can extend beyond formal powers. You need to understand the influence on public opinion the president has. Also in foreign affairs, presidents often represent the face of America. Aside from having liaisons and not senators, but representatives of the country, ambassadors is what I was thinking about. All right. All right, so let's talk about some of the informal institutional arraignments of power. So, when we think of political parties, before I begin, for the next few things, you need to know their role in government, and what their powers are. Okay, so for political parties, you need to know the roles and you need to know their powers. So you need to know political parties organize elections, they aggregate interests, just to name a few things. And the powers of the political party are the ability to select candidates and ultimately shape policy. Okay, those are some of the things, not all of the things. You need to know the role and powers of interest groups. For example, their role is represent specific interests, and some of their powers are to lobby government officials for certain laws, right? So more on that. Now, when it comes to the media, the role of the media is to act as a watchdog and inform the public and influence public opinion. Some of their powers are framing issues, setting the public agenda, etc. Executive orders and presidential memorandum, the nature of this is they're informal tools used by the president to direct the executive branch. They are not legislation, all right, contrary to popular belief. Executive orders are not law, but they do have significant impact on policy. All right, let's talk about some constitutional powers and influence. So when we talk constitutional powers and influence, we're specifically talking about legislative influence. So while the president cannot make laws, again, they can significantly impact legislation through veto power, through executive orders. They can propose policies. They have their own unique ways of shaping legislation within the legislative branch, which we'll briefly talk about in a minute. Again, we already talked about foreign policy leadership. We did not talk about judicial appointments. We briefly touched on it, but obviously the president, one of the ways they can sort of enact their power is by appointing judges, right? So even though the judicial branch is separate, the idea is that sometimes presidents will put judges in power who they feel will help serve their agenda, if that makes sense, right? So president's power to appoint judges definitely is included in that umbrella. All right, guys, so next we're going to get into bureaucracy, structure, functions, and relationships with other institutions. So everything that I'm about to mention, again, you need to know its structure, how it's structured, the organization itself, what the function of the organization is, and what the relationship is with other institutions within and the rest of government. So, for example, you need to know the different cabinet departments. So some examples of this would be like the Department of Defense, Department of Education, Department of Health and Human Services. You need to understand what the different independent agencies are: EPA, NASA, NSA, FBI. You need to know about different government corporations. So biggest example of this would be the post office, different regulatory commissions, FCC, SEC. What do they do? What are their function? What laws do they implement? What is their administration or administrative objective? What do they regulate? Service position, what essential services do they provide to the public, what is their relationship with the other institutions. For example, they are created by congressional acts. Congress controls their budgets. Congress also oversees bureaucratic activities through hearings and investigations. So that's the relationship with Congress. Now, what is the relationship with the president? What is the relationship with the courts, the judiciary system? What is the relationship with public interest with the public and interest groups? Also, you want to know some challenges and some criticisms of different forms of the bureaucratic structure. Examples of this would include, speaking too fast, red tape, inefficiency, lack of accountability, political influence, and as we're seeing right now within real time, what people are referring to as efficiency and money being mismanaged throughout government and things like that. So all those are kind of criticisms of the big bureaucratic machine. All right, so relationship with Congress, we already talked about legislative oversight, budgetary controls, legislative authority with the president, appointment power. So president has appointment power over most of these entities, executive orders and directives, policy implementations, and then so on with the judiciary branch, judicial review, interpretation of laws, and then relationship with the public services and goods, accountability to the citizens. And then with interest groups, a lot of lobbying, a lot of heavy influence, regulatory capture. So all of those things, you really want to be able to explain them, and you really want to be able to have a good idea of what it is that they do. Okay. Structure, function, and relationship to the other branches of government. Okay, let's talk Congress for a second. So the main things you're going to want to know here, you're going to want to know how Congress is, or let me rephrase that, what it's made up. How, no, that doesn't sound right either. You're basically going to want to know the structure of Congress. Okay, you got the House of Representatives, you got the Senate. You need to know about the memberships, you need to know about the members, term lengths, leadership, the special powers. All right, I'm not going to get into everything, but those are things that you really need to know. All right, same thing with the Senate. You need to know about the memberships, terms, leadership, powers of the Senate. Okay, just for some fun facts, Congress has 435 members. The Senate consists of 100 members. All right, so that is Senate and the House of Representatives. You need to know the functions and powers of Congress. You need to know legislative authority, oversight and investigation, their representative roles, okay? And how do they serve their constituents, okay? What are they, what is the relationship there? Constituents meaning the population that they represent. And then also how they advise and consent. All right, so the Senate has a role of reviewing and confirming presidential appointments and have the ability to ratify treaties. So that's an example of that. Then get into the legislative process with Congress. So they introduce bills, they introduce new laws. They act as committee reviews. All right, so they can put together review boards. They debate and vote on laws. You need to understand what reconciliation is, what that process is, and then also how presidential approval works. Also, you need to understand some of the challenges within Congress, partisanship and the polarization. So that's basically like left, right, Republican, Democrat, decisive politics, things like that. Perception is also something you need to know. Okay, last but not least on this section, we're going to briefly talk about courts. Everything I'm going to tell you is what you need to know. So I hope you got something to take notes with, write it down, type it up, whatever you can do. All right, so influence on federal courts. So federal court, oh, hold on, wait. I think I'm in the wrong section. Give me 1 second. All right, here we go. Sorry about that, guys. All right, role of federal courts. Interpreting the law. All right, judicial review, dispute resolution, protection of rights and liberties. You need to know those things. Structure of federal courts. So you have your U.S. district courts, you have your U.S. courts of appeal, and you have the Supreme Court of the United States. You need to know how those courts work, what are the structures of the court system, and how cases and things like that can go up or down that hierarchical system. All right, sometimes cases get pushed down to lower courts, and then sometimes cases, get pushed up all the way to the Supreme Court. What is that process? How does it work? You need to know it. All right, influence of the courts. All right, you need to know about legal precedents, social and political impact, interpretation of the Constitution, which is a really big thing, and then checks and balances, of course. All right, next we're going to get into political parties and interest groups. All right, political parties. So you need to know the primary role of political parties. You need to know the structure of political parties, the functions of political parties. You need to know how they nominate candidates. You need to know how they formulate policy. You need to know what electioneering is. So basically parties organizing campaigns to win votes for their candidates. You need to know how this all works with organizing government. For example, if successful in elections, a lot of the times organize and lead the government. So, people who are part of the campaign to elect the president a lot of times go on to earn positions in the president's cabinet. You also need to understand how political parties integrate and mobilize the public in order to get out there and vote, and how influence works within political parties. What you need to know about interest groups. You need to know their primary role. You need to know the different types of interest groups, and you need to know their functions. For example, they lobby. They usually take out information campaigns. They do a lot of grassroots mobilization, and they have a bunch of different election activities. Some interest groups engage in things like endorsing candidates. They'll take out ads. You need to know what PACs are. PACs are essentially groups that will push candidates like I just mentioned, information campaigns. They'll take out commercials and stuff like that. That's a lot of the times when you see those commercials where they'll be like, John Smith wants to take away your house and raise your taxes and blah 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 blah. Vote for whoever. I don't know. You guys get what I'm saying. All right, the other thing about political parties, you need to know the scope and objectives. Political parties have broader objectives seeking to control government. The methods and influence, we touched on that briefly, and how they interact with the public on particular issues. Political parties, in turn, may align with central interest groups to gain support for broader agendas. Then you need to know the impact on democracy. All right, so political parties are essential for democratic governance. Interest groups play a crucial role in representing specific interests and contributing to policy debates, etc., so on and so forth. All right, then you want to know about the historical developments of political parties. All right, so you want to know about the early beginnings, how political parties were formed. You need to know that the U.S. Constitution did not originally have provisions for political parties, or even, I would say, they didn't foresee or have envisions of political parties. And as a matter of fact, the earliest signs of political parties forming were during the presidency of George Washington. You need to know about the era of good feelings, what that was all about, the rise of the two-party system, and you need to understand Civil War and post-war era, and then the 20th century. So basically, starting with the era of good feelings, how parties evolved over time through understanding the rise of the two-party system, post-Civil War era, and then how that all led into 20th century political parties and how they function today. Same thing with interest groups. You need to know the historical development of interest groups, early advocacy. You need to understand the progressive era, post-World War II expansion of interest groups, and then the contemporary landscape. So what it looks like today. All right, finally, we're going to close off with political beliefs and behavior. So this is everything that you need to know about political beliefs and behavior. You need to know how citizens are informed by the public. So, for example, the role of education. You need to know the role of civic education, what critical thinking does, and how it fosters the skills to enable individuals to analyze politics better and take in information and make more informed decisions. That includes the role of the media, news and information, analysis of the commentary, the role of social institutions, so community groups, NGOs, non-government organizations. You need to know what those things are. And also religious institutions and family social networks. All right, those are all very important. Then you need to understand how political participation works, so how voting behavior works and its determinants. For example, you have things like socioeconomic factors, demographic factors, how people identify with specific political parties and align their interests with the interests of the parties. And then there's other forms of political participation. So you have activism and protest, volunteering for campaigns, community engagement, again, advocacy and lobbying, which we've talked about before. And then you need to understand public opinion and political culture. So formation and measurement of public opinion. You need to understand that public opinion is shaped a lot of the times by personal experiences. So where you grew up, your overall environment. If you grew up in a very liberal environment, it's a really good chance that your views and opinions will be that of, liberal ideologies. Same thing with your education, type of media and then how those things are measured, right? And same thing with of culture, cultural norms, values, influence of public opinion on political leaders and policy. So how does that influence their policy making and agenda setting? And then ultimately, how does it influence elections? All right, guys, we have covered a lot. All right, this is a pretty big exam. If you want to get your hands on the study guide, you can go to studywithmark.com. Again, that's studywithmark.com. On the homepage, hit the Get Started button. All right, go through that survey. It's a very quick and brief survey. And at the end of it, you get a 20% coupon code that you can use for any and all products. And none of the products are expensive to begin with. They're the most expensive product is, I want to say, $75, but that is like a lifetime product where you can have access to the platform for forever. And I'm gonna be making content for every single CLEP exam. So if you're somebody who's planning to take like multiple exams, that would be a really, really good value for you. You get study guides, you get 3-week study plans. I got flashcards. I have a full ultimate CLEP study course, basically everything you need to pass this exam and to essentially help you knock out, or not knock out, but not have to take out loans to go to college and, get ahead, especially for you young folks out there. It's a really great value. So if you're interested, studywithmark.com, hit the description. And also, if you just need some help, you got any questions, feel free to reach out to me. All my contact info is in the description. And looking forward to hearing from you guys. I hope this video was valuable. Till next time, take care.